Jeroen, it seems to me that almost everyone, including religious believers, want to take science seriously. And we also usually think that when scientists agree on something, we should take it very, very seriously. On the other hand, there are disagreements, and to some who are not so familiar with these discussions on science and theology, it might seem like, for example, that the scientists don't really agree about biological evolution or perhaps even the age of the Earth. And it might seem like there's a legitimate debate in science, and therefore they somehow think that they can hold different positions and take different views. My question is, when do we have to agree with scientists? When is there a big enough agreement, a consensus, so that normal people should just follow them and believe what scientists say?
Yeah, yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer in very general terms, because my answer would be, well, we'd have to look at these things on a case-by-case basis. So there's no sort of general rule that I could give. If the percentage of agreement is above 90, we should go with it. On the other hand, you're absolutely right that sometimes it might look to people outside of science as if there is disagreement among scientists when there really isn't. On the other hand, sometimes it looks as if there's agreement,
and there isn't.
There's actual disagreement.
Yeah.
So this makes it difficult for people sort of to get a sense of what's going on in science. As long as you're not sort of actually in the academy or even within a field, sometimes when you're in the academy but in a different field, it might be difficult to get a sense of what's going on. But I think in the case you talked about, so with biological evolution, it's difficult because there is what you might call there's disagreement sort of being fabricated, as it were. There's sort of people who have clear interests in dismissing certain, pretty much established science in order to create room for their views. And I'm sort of thinking here of people who read the Bible very literally, and creationists who think the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old, and humans were sort of created completely separately from other animals and different species. And again, I have to be a little careful here, because I myself am not a biologist. I'm a philosopher, so I also look at these things from some distance. But my understanding from talking to my biology professor friends is that there is no sort of real actual disagreement in biology about a lot of these issues. So what's going on is that there's sort of at the more popular level, creationists are sort of writing books and sort of suggesting that there is this sort of conspiracy, perhaps even in biology, or at least that there's sort of this atheistic worldview that's enforced within biology, and that makes it so that evolution is widely accepted and that dissenting voices are silenced. I just think that's false. Sure, we all have our interests. So of course, some people would be more open to certain sort of views than others. But the community of biologists, as far as I can tell, is a pretty diverse bunch. So there's Christians, there's non-Christians, there's all sorts of people. And there doesn't seem to be any sort of conspiracy going on. It's just that there is a lot of evidence for these views in evolution, for these views about the age of the Earth. And when there's a lot of evidence, you better take it seriously. That seems like the reasonable thing to do, right? So, in a sense, I think that you can even compare this case to climate change, so climate science, right? There's people sort of denying that there is such a thing as climate change, or denying that it's humans who caused most of it.
And there's so much science there that it's very hard to understand. I have no clue how you get these results.
No, sure. Yeah. That's true for a lot of us, I suppose. But here too, there's sort of, in climate science, there's a small minority of people with vested interests in denying that there is such a thing as human-caused climate change, and they're creating the sense that there is disagreement, where when you talk to the actual scientists, there really isn't a whole lot of disagreement there. I guess sort of getting back to your original question, we should be careful and sort of pay attention to whether any of these things is going on. Are there people who are sort of trying to create the image that there is a lot of disagreement, or is there actual disagreement among the scientists? And again, as an outsider, this is sometimes hard to do because you get people with sort of impressive academic titles and resumes and what have you. I mean, we have to be a little careful and sometimes a little bit smart in who we talk to and who we trust here.
Who should we trust?
Who should we trust? Well, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I suppose in the case of evolution, we should trust the biologists who are actually doing the work in biology. And of course, not everyone knows biologists, but then try to find out by talking to your local university biologist if it's something that really sort of concerns you. And be very sort of careful in discriminating in what websites you read, and be aware of interests that may be behind these things. It is really hard because sometimes science is a fallible enterprise, right? So sometimes science just takes this wrong course and stays on this wrong course for a long time, and it just goes undetected. So sometimes there is actual agreement in science, and it's just wrong. So these things happen, but I guess this is all just to say that we live in a very complicated world, and it's not always easy. It's not very transparent to see what the actual truth is.
Yeah, with in the internet and everything, you can find evidence for any kind of position, basically.
Yeah. I mean, internet and newspapers and magazines. I mean, that's Facebook, of course.
Yeah.
And, Facebook sort of reinforces your own beliefs. It seems that's sort of how the algorithm works. So, I mean, get outside Facebook for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a practical advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.